Welcome back to Talk Tickers, everybody. Ready to dive into some earnings calls with us today?
Always ready. Let's do it.
All right, so today we are talking all things DraftKings. Their Q3 2024 earnings call just dropped.
Yeah, some pretty interesting stuff in there for sure.
Yeah, and spoiler alert, it's a bit of a roller coaster. We're going to break down all the highs, all the lows, all those little details you need to know.
Really paint the full picture.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We want you to walk away feeling like you could run DraftKings yourself.
Well, maybe not run it, but definitely understand it a lot better.
Okay, fair enough. But one thing that really jumped out at me right away was how the market reacted to the news, because their stock actually went UP after the call.
Yeah, that's what caught my eye too. Usually when a company reports some setbacks, you expect the stock to take a hit, but not DraftKings.
Definitely seems like investors are seeing something promising here.
Right. They must be looking beyond the immediate number.
Right. Okay, so let's unpack that. Let's start with the good news. The undeniable wins. DraftKings is seeing some serious growth. They hit over $1 billion in revenue for the quarter.
Huge milestone.
It is. That's a 39% jump compared to last year.
Yeah.
So they're definitely on an upward trajectory.
For sure. And it's not just the revenue growth. They're also attracting new customers like crazy.
Yeah, their customer acquisition is impressive. They even managed to lower their customer acquisition cost by almost 20%.
That's massive. It shows they're getting way more efficient with their marketing spend.
Right. It's not just about throwing money at the problem. They're figuring out how to get the most bang for their buck.
Exactly. And on top of that, their structural hold percentage is improving, meaning they're getting better at predicting outcomes and setting those odds in their favor.
Structural hold percentage.
Yeah.
I feel like that's one of those terms that gets thrown around a lot, but not everyone fully understands it.
Yeah, it can be a bit jargony, but think of it this way. It's basically the percentage of money DraftKings keeps from every bet placed.
So if their hold percentage is going up, that means they're keeping a bigger slice of the pie for themselves.
Exactly. They're becoming more profitable on each individual bet.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've got growth, we've got new customers, and they're getting better at the game itself. Sounds like a recipe for success, right?
Well, it definitely seems like they're hitting all the right notes, but there's a reason we called this a roller coaster ride.
Right, because October wasn't exactly kind to them.
Not at all. It was brutal. They had the absolute worst luck with NFL outcomes.
Ouch. So all those happy bettors winning their bets meant a hit to DraftKings' bottom line.
Yeah, big time. We're talking a $250 million impact on their revenue projections.
Wow, that's a serious blow.
And a $175 million hit to their EBITDA projections.
Okay, now you're just using fancy acronyms again. Just to be clear for our listeners, what is EBITDA and why should we care?
Fair enough. EBITDA stands for earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. It's basically a way to look at a company's core profitability without all the accounting noise.
So like a snapshot of how much money they're actually making from their operations.
Exactly. A big hit to EBITDA isn't ideal. But in DraftKings' case, they're insisting it was just a streak of bad luck.
So not necessarily a sign of fundamental weakness.
Right. They argue that their core metrics are still solid and they're on track for the long haul.
So they're not hitting the panic button just yet.
Nope. They're staying the course.
Right, so they're not panicking. But they did have to adjust their projections. What's the outlook for the rest of 2024 and beyond?
Well, they had to revise their 2024 outlook downward. But here's where it gets really interesting. They're still incredibly bullish on 2025.
Okay. So they're not letting a bad month derail their long-term vision.
Nope, not at all. They're projecting EBITDA between $900 million and $1 billion for 2025.
That's a big jump. And their revenue guidance for 2025 is equally ambitious. They're aiming for $6.2 to $6.6 billion.
Yep, that's a potential 27% to 35% growth year over year.
Those are some bold projections. What's fueling this optimism? Are they just being overly optimistic?
Well, a big part of it comes from a fascinating trend they highlighted, the rise of parlays.
Especially for NFL bets.
Right. It seems like everyone's trying to hit it big with those multi-game bets.
Now, for those of us who don't live and breathe sports betting, can you break down what a parlay is and why it's so significant?
Sure. A parlay is basically a combo bet. Instead of betting on just one game, you're betting on multiple games at once.
So higher risk, higher reward.
Exactly. The payout is way bigger if you win all your bets. But if you lose just one, you lose the entire bet.
So it's like a high-stakes gamble.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But for DraftKings, it's great news because parlays have higher hold percentages for the company.
Meaning they take a bigger cut.
Exactly.
Right.
More bets in one parlay equals more opportunities for DraftKings to make money.
Interesting. So it's not just about getting people to bet. It's about getting them to bet in a way that's more profitable for DraftKings.
That's a key takeaway. And the best part is this trend seems to be carrying over to the NBA season as well.
So it's not just a football thing.
Nope. It's becoming a bigger part of the overall sports betting landscape, which is fantastic news for DraftKings' bottom line.
So they've stumbled a bit in Q3, but they're still betting big on the future.
They are, and it'll be interesting to see how these trends play out in the coming months.
For sure. This is definitely a story we'll be keeping a close eye on.
Absolutely.
All right, folks, that's a wrap for part 1 of our DraftKings deep dive. Be sure to tune in for part 2, where we'll delve even deeper into their strategies and challenges.
We'll be back soon. Don't miss it. It's like they found a bit of a sweet spot with these parlays.
Yeah,
Definitely.
It's not just about getting new players in the door anymore, right? It's about making sure your existing players are the ones placing the bets that really boost your profits.
Right, on the money. And speaking of smart strategies, that brings us to another interesting piece of the puzzle, micro-betting.
Ah, yes. Their big bet on micro-betting. So what's the latest on that front?
Well, DraftKings is really doubling down on micro-betting with their acquisition of SimpleBet. Remember, this is all about betting on those tiny, in-the-moment occurrences during a game.
Yeah. So instead of just betting on who wins the whole game,
Yeah.
you're betting on things like, will the next pitch be a strike? Will this drive result in a touchdown? That kind of thing.
Exactly. You got it. It adds a whole other layer of excitement and engagement, especially for those who love that instant gratification.
Oh, yeah. Imagine the thrill of betting on every play, every pitch, every shot.
Exactly. It's nonstop action. But I do wonder, could it alienate those who prefer more traditional betting? Is it too much too fast?
Yeah, it's a valid point.
Oh.
Some might find it overwhelming or distracting.
Definitely. But on the other hand, I think it has the potential to attract a whole new generation of bettors.
You know, those who are used to fast-paced, interactive experiences.
Right. It's like they're tapping into the attention span of the TikTok generation.
Uh-huh, exactly. It's all about adapting to the changing landscape and understanding how people consume entertainment these days, including sports.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So micro-betting is definitely a big part of their innovation strategy.
Yeah.
What else are they doing to stay ahead of the competition?
Well, they're constantly fine-tuning their app, rolling out new features, making the user experience as seamless as possible. They're also investing a ton in data analytics.
All about understanding their customers better and personalizing their offerings.
Exactly. It's all about creating that addictive, personalized experience that keeps users coming back for more.
The holy grail of any app these days.
Right.
But let's zoom out for a second and look at the bigger picture. The online gambling industry is still in its early stages of growth,
Huge potential there.
and DraftKings is positioned to be a major player.
Absolutely. They're already a leader in the U.S. market, and they're expanding into new states as they legalize sports betting.
And they even hinted at potential international expansion down the line.
They did, but they emphasize that their main focus right now is conquering the North American market.
Makes sense. Why spread yourself thin when you've got a gold mine right in your backyard?
Exactly. The North American market is massive and still ripe for the taking.
But they're not the only ones vying for a piece of this pie.
Right.
Competition is fierce in the online gambling world.
Oh, absolutely. You've got established players like FanDuel and BetMGM, all fighting for market share and constantly upping their game.
So how does DraftKings plan to stay ahead of the pack? What sets them apart?
Well, they've got strong brand recognition, especially among sports fans. They've also built a really robust technology platform.
Yeah, and they offer a wide range of betting options, catering to different tastes.
Right. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach. And their focus on innovation, particularly with micro-betting, could give them a long-term advantage.
It could, but
Yeah,
they can't get complacent. The competition is relentless.
that's for sure. Companies like FanDuel are pouring resources into technology marketing and product development as well.
It's a constant arms race to innovate and attract users.
Absolutely. And that's what makes this industry so exciting to watch.
So before we move on, let's quickly recap what we've learned so far. DraftKings is financially solid, riding high on the popularity of parlays and aggressively pushing into micro-betting.
They're also expanding into new markets and facing stiff competition, but they seem confident in their ability to stay ahead of the curve.
And that brings us to the final part of our deep dive. We'll be exploring some of the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead for DraftKings. And we'll delve into some of the ethical considerations surrounding the online gambling industry.
We'll also leave you with some food for thought, some key questions to ponder as you navigate this complex and rapidly evolving world.
So stay tuned for the grand finale. We'll wrap up our analysis and offer some final insights. Welcome back to Talk Tickers, folks. We're wrapping up our DraftKings deep dive. And let me tell you, this final quarter is shaping up to be a real nail-biter.
Yeah, we've talked about their wins, their setbacks, those big plans for the future. But now it's time to tackle that big ol' elephant in the room.
You talking about the competition?
That's the one.
Yeah.
The online gambling world. It's a jungle out there.
No kidding. Yeah, everybody and their brother is trying to grab a piece of the action.
Exactly. And DraftKings, they're going up against some heavy hitters like FanDuel, BetMGM. These guys aren't messing around.
They're pouring money into tech marketing, making sure their user experience is top-notch.
It's an all-out brawl.
So how does DraftKings stay ahead in this game? What are they doing to stand out from the crowd?
Well, for one, they've got that brand recognition, especially with those diehard sports fans.
Yeah, that name carries weight.
It does. And they built a seriously impressive tech platform, too.
Solid foundation.
Right. And they offer a ton of different betting options, something for everyone.
Variety is the spice of life, right?
Exactly. And let's not forget about their big push into microbetting. That could be a real game changer.
Yeah, bringing in a whole new wave of bettors.
It could. But they can't just coast on that FanDuel and the others. They're innovating, too.
It's a never-ending race to stay ahead.
Absolutely. And that's what makes this whole industry so exciting.
For sure. But there's another challenge DraftKings needs to tackle. How do you balance all that growth with actual profitability?
That's the million-dollar question. They're spending a lot to bring in those new users, but at some point that's got to pay off.
Right. You can't just keep throwing money at the problem.
They need to make sure those new customers are sticking around and actually generating revenue.
It's not just about quantity. It's about quality.
You got it. They need those loyal, engaged customers, the ones who are in it for the long haul.
The kind of folks who make those recurring deposits.
Exactly. That's where the real money is.
All right. So we've covered a lot of ground today. But before we wrap things up, it's time for our favorite segment.
Oh, yeah. I love this part.
This is not financial advice, where we take everything we've learned and throw out some wild but plausible trade ideas.
Always a fun exercise.
So what do you have for us today?
Well, here's something to chew on. DraftKings' stock actually went UP after their earnings call, despite those lowered projections for 2024.
Interesting.
So what if the market is onto something that we're not?
Like they're looking past the short-term hiccups and betting on the long-term vision.
Exactly.
Right.
Remember, they're still shooting for that billion-dollar EBITDA target in 2025.
So maybe this dip is actually a buying opportunity.
It's possible. A chance to snag some shares before they potentially skyrocket.
Bold move. But sometimes those are the ones that pay off the most.
Of course, this is all hypothetical. We are not financial advisors.
Ellen.
You should always do your own research before making any investment decisions.
Couldn't agree more. But it's always fun to speculate a little, right?
Absolutely. Keeps those brain juices flowing.
All right, folks. That wraps up our DraftKings deep dive. It's been a wild ride. Lots of twists and turns.
Plenty of food for thought, too.
For sure. We've analyzed their numbers, their strategy, their competition. Hopefully you've walked away with a better understanding of DraftKings and the online gambling world as a whole.
It's a fascinating industry, that's for sure.
And as always, we encourage you to do your own research. Stay informed. Keep an eye on this dynamic world. It's constantly changing.
Absolutely. You got to stay ahead of the curve.
Thanks for joining us on Talk Tickers, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
See ya, Bessa.